Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome back to From the Depths Mod Reviews. We're we are reviewing, they both start with R, bear with me, we are reviewing another mod by Diggz, who is the same person who did the Cram Booster Barrel mod, which I have reviewed previously. This is a kind of similar vein in that it changed just a small change to an existing weapon system and just, well, I guess fixes something that was debatably a problem, and that is the 1000mm APS gauge limit, which, exactly as the title suggests, it just raises the gauge, the maximum gauge of APS guns to 1000mm, so you can now make guns which are twice the diameter of the previous limit, which was 500mm. And they are quite fun. So what we have here is a 1000mm gun firing 8m shells, hollow point sabot, or sabot, I never remember how to pronounce that. And yeah, it's a railgun. It's got a lot of railguns in here, and excuse me, come on, there we go. And these things can only hold one shell at a time, because they're so big. They are 1000mm, and yeah, and this is a horrible way to build a railgun, by the way. Don't stick the railgun bits in the turret cap, that's a bad idea. Although, making it this big and wide is actually quite useful if you do need to stick emergency stuff up there. But anyway, it makes a wonderfully big muzzle flash. Boom. And it makes a huge mess of, well, most things. So yeah, I have tested this a wee bit, back and forth. Not tremendously thoroughly, it's just trying different shell types. And it feels kind of balanced. It's certainly not an instant win button. It doesn't feel as imbalanced as the Cram Booster Barrel. Or just as weirdly balanced, because it's fun, big, derpy shells. And they do scale up just the same way that the vanilla APS shell sizes do. So they do a lot of damage, but then again, remember, this is a huge, expensive railgun, and it would do similar kinds of ducker if it was just a 500mm gun. And I can't believe I said just a 500mm gun. So if we go over here, we can hop over to the ammo customizer. And you can see that the slider now goes all the way up to 1000. You can see the difference between this thing and the 500mm version. This shell would be 4 meters long if it was at 500mm, but it goes up a long way until it is 1000mm, and it has a lot of health, 14,000, which admittedly compared to really packed cram shells and large and huge missiles is really not that much, although this thing does go 1,800 meters per second, so it is a lot harder to stop. But yeah, it is, on the whole, I can't say it's balanced or imbalanced because I really haven't tested enough. You'll probably need to, I don't know, run a tournament with this mod enabled just to see how balanced it actually is. But yeah, it seems pretty alright, it's quite fun. If you want giant guns which are not cram cannons, because goodness knows cram cannons can be... I don't know, I've been banging on about cram cannons a lot lately. Like, and I shouldn't be banging on about them now, because, well, that's not what this video is about. But yeah, so that is one of the very few complaints I have with this mod, is that if you've got 1000mm APS, cram cannons are basically not, well, they're even more obsolete than they already were. It's like, if you want giant guns, this mod basically means that you can have them without touching cram cannons at all. And if you don't like cram cannons, and if you never use them anyway, that's probably not an issue. That is a very, very subjective criticism, and probably most people watching will not be bothered by that at all. The one major criticism I will level, though, is let's have a nice juicy target. I actually think the Megalodon's lambs can still zap these shells out of the air. We'll have to see. We'll have to see that. Wait for it. That is, unless we manage to zap the lamb system off completely as in first. Yep, I think they did. Yep. Yeah, the Meg can still zap these shells out of the air simply because that lambs is ridiculous. Let's have a different target. Let's have a more satisfying target. Where's the Rhea? There's the Rhea. The Rhea is fun to shoot at. Sorry, Rhea, if you're watching. Rhea is one of the devs, or used to be one of the devs at the very least. So bang, bang, bang. This kind of damage, by the way, is not specifically because this thing is 1000 millimeters. It is because it is 1000 millimeters and also a giant freaking railgun. It tends to, yeah, just rip blocks off completely. So, yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. The main issue I have with this, and, like, you be quiet for a hot moment, so we can hear this. There we go. So you'll notice that sound is exactly the same as the vanilla 500mm APS. So if we actually muck around with this quickly, we can do that quite easily. So just under 500mm, this is what APS sounds like. And crank it up to 500mm. That's what it sounds like. And 1000mm sounds exactly the same. Now, this is another just small nitpick, because let's be honest here, getting new sounds into From the Depths is slightly different from just mucking around with the APS gauge limit. But, yeah, it's just like, it would be nice if the sound was changed for this new higher gauges. But I actually think, hang on, let's go to, say, 750. Yep, sounds exactly the same. It would be nice if it sounded different. Like, that's the only real complaint that I have for this. Is just because that's a little dull. That's a little dull. And it would be super nice if it sounded like... I actually don't know how the sound would change. Maybe you would... I actually don't know. It shouldn't just get louder, because that would be terrible. Like, simple lasers are bad enough with how they get deafened. And let's let the Rhea shoot back now. Simply because, well, there you go then. Those are 500mm guns, they sound exactly the same. That's no fun. And now we'll turn you off because thumbnail time. So yeah, that's basically it for this mod. It's a fun wee mod. And yeah, it's just if you thought it sucked that APS shells couldn't get any bigger, and if there was a gap you wanted. Well, if you think there's a problem with there being a gap between the size of the minimum gauge cram and the maximum gauge APS, well, this mod fixes that quite nicely. It's actually quite cool. It's just from 18mm to 1000mm, you can roll with APS, and from 1000 to 2000mm, you can roll with crams. And now, Diggz, you know that if you haven't already made it, you've got to make a 5000 millimeter cram gauge limit, just for giggles. So yeah, that's basically it for this review. Thank you, Diggz, for making this mod. I, for one, appreciate it. And thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon or YouTube membership if you like. It really helps. And there are fun perks in it for you. Thank you to all my current supporters, and I will see you next time in From the Depths mod review. Farewell.